Okay, so you own a Mazda 6, 2003 to 2006, even the MPS. You want to fit a light bar, but you're having problems. Well, one of the reasons you're having problems is Mazda, in their infinite wisdom, have opted to have power going direct to the lights. As soon as you turn your lights on, power goes to the lights. The way the light actually works is that the switch acts to transfer the power to earth. In most cars it's the opposite way around, and this method creates a lot of problems. However, they can be overcome quite easily. If you have a look at the photographs that I'm about to put to you, you'll see how you can get around the problem. But first things first, where are you going to put your relay for your light bar or whatever lights you want to add to the vehicle? And what obstacles are you going to meet? So picture number 1 shows where I put my relay, and I think it's probably appropriate if we have a look at that right now. So you can see where the relay is. It's sitting on just behind the battery. There's a lug there that Mazda have put that you can actually screw onto. I found this convenient. It's close to the battery and allows, as long as you have a 10mm nut to fit on it, because it's just a stud. So once you fit your relay, you need to make some connections. So let's move to let's take a step back first. The issues you're going to have is how you're going to connect your relay. Most relays take power from your high beam wire and they run through the relay and to earth. That does not work on the Mazda. So what you will need to do is to actually extend the earth wire to your headlight. You will also need to pass the main relay wire to your headlight. And in order to do that, we need to take the plastic cover for the headlights off and drill it. Put a grommet where you drill so that it doesn't take water. And if you have a look at this next photograph, you'll see the cover that covers your high beam and where I have drilled and put a grommet. So let's have a look at that now. So this is a reasonably tricky operation. You can see I've drilled it and I've put a grommet in it. Now you need to drill sufficient hole to put 2 wires through. I found it easier to drill with a 13mm pretty sharp drill. You have to be very accurate with this, otherwise your grommet will not seal your hole. Now, I'm 71 years old, I'm decrepit and old, and I managed to do it not once but twice, once on my son's car and once on my MPS, and they both worked out perfectly well. So the trick with this is take your time. Don't rush. You'll muck it up if you rush. Okay? So let's move on. From there, what you need to do is select where you're going to locate your connection to your headlights. Now, I chose the right-hand side, the driver's side of the vehicle, at least in Australia, assuming that all the Australians are watching this. Now, the wires have to go to your headlights, and I'm talking the actuating wire and the earth wire of your relay. So I'm not going to go into which is which, because it depends on the relay you're using, and they all have different color codes, and they all try to make it as simple for you to use. They do point out which is which. If you have an issue, perhaps you can contact the manufacturer of your light bar and find out which wires actuate. The earth wire is easy. That will just go to earth and it'll be pretty easily marked, but that has to come back to your lights. So the next picture you'll see is just me passing the wires through the plastic cover. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So now the next frame you'll see is the actual connection of the actuating wire and the earth wire. Now, what you have to do is connect your actuating wire to the back of your high beam headlamp. You have to connect, that is the actual connector or the connection of your high beam headlamp. The red wire, which is actually the extension of the earth wire from the relay, is to be connected to an earth wire which is right next to the high beam headlamp. It's a pretty short wire. Unfortunately, it's a short wire in all Mazdas. I think they must have been saving money doing this system by using less wire. Anyway, when you connect it, make certain that you have a good earth, and you must connect to the pin. So you will have the actual high beam connector wire there, and you will also connect your relay wire to that earth pin. Okay, so we'll stop, or I'll show you that connection now. Okay, so you can see it's very tight in there. You need to have good access, so you make sure that you move the water for the headlight washers, the container, as far from the headlight as possible. You need to have pretty good view of what you're doing so that you can make your connections. And when you're routing your wires, make sure you don't get it too confused so things don't get in your way. The more wire you have, the better off you are, but the more breaks you have in your wire, the more chance you have of something going wrong. Now, that said, there's a few things that can still go wrong here. The first one is that I use 100-watt globes in my headlamps because I do a lot of country driving, and the standard 65 or depending on where you are, whatever wattage they use, are not sufficient, especially here with the kangaroos. You don't see anything with your high beam unless you've got some sort of power in your high beam. This is why I'm putting the light bar on in the first place. Now, the issue that you have by having 100-watt globes is that your fuse in your main fuse box, and there's a picture of that in a minute, I'll put that up for you to have a look at. You'll find that your left hand and right hand high beam lights have 10 amp fuses. Now 100 watts will ride on a 10 amp fuse, but once you add the pressure of the relay, you really need a 15 amp fuse. And the other thing I've also done is I've removed, on my relay, they have everything earthing through the one earth. That includes the light bar, and they run through the relay. Now, for obvious reasons, if you're going to be running this through the Mazda system, it's going to play havoc with your fuses, because you're talking 40 watts for your light bar and 10 amps for your headlight, and then another couple of amps for your relay. So there's no chance that the fuses are going to survive. So what I've done, I've actually cut the earth return, or the neutral, whatever you want to call it, from the relay for the light bar, and I've put that direct to the battery. So there'll be two photos, one showing the cut wire and the other one, gee, I've forgotten what I was talking about earlier. Anyway, have a look at the photos. And so there you go, that's the light bar, the negative connected to the battery, the earth terminal of the battery, and that's a picture of the fuse box. If you look in the fuse box, you'll notice that the high and low beam are 10 amp fuses. If you have a look at the back of the fuse box, it shows you where they're located, and depending on which headlight you attach your light bar to, you'll need to upgrade the fuse from the 10 amps to, say, a 15 amp. The wiring's adequate to cope with the extra 5 amps. Your issue is only that you will blow a fuse if you put everything on there, and you should ensure that the light bar earths separately so that there's no draw on the relay itself, which increases the power required and will definitely blow your fuse. Okay, so now this system that I've put together is just simply to have the light bar actuated with your high beam. Now you can fit a separate switch. I haven't fitted one to the two cars that I'm messing around with, even though I intend to. I have a ute with a separate switch where I can turn it off. The issue with this is you can't break the two wires that come from the relay like you can with other systems. They're much simpler to install. With these Mazda cars, you'll have to break the main And the best place to do that is between, when you connect your relay, you will connect your positive wire to your positive terminal of your battery. When you do that, there is a fuse. Between that fuse and the connection to the positive terminal is where you should break the line and run that through a switch somewhere in the cabin where you want it, so that you can control whether the light bar comes on or doesn't come on. Okay, in order not to have issues with that, you'll need to choose a switch that is powerful enough and can carry enough current to run your light bar. Now, I've used 336 watt light bars, and if you do the maths is they draw about 28 amps. So you need a 30 amp switch. If you don't use a 30 amp switch, you're going to blow the switch, and then you'll have no light bar because there won't be any way of actuating it. Your switch being the medium between the power and the fuse and then the relay. Now, if you've got a bigger light bar than that, then you're going to have to choose an appropriate switch. You'll also need to choose appropriate cabling because, like it or lump it, they use a lot of power and the cabling should be up to it. If you use lightweight wire, you'll overheat it. You might burn through somewhere and short circuit and cause yourself all sorts of disasters. So all the cabling I've got cabling for the vehicles, and I've got switches. I haven't fitted them yet, so I can't show you pictures of them being fitted because it's very painful to find a nice location to put a switch in a Mazda. They're very, very compact and nicely laid out, but finding a nice spot to put a switch is almost impossible. So that said, just remember the basics. There's a formula which is that your watts are equal to your amps times your voltage. Now, your voltage is 12 volts times your ampage is going to give you your watts. Your car will generate more than 12 volts. It will generate 14.5 while it's running, but actually that reduces the amps draw. So that's okay, it's not a bad thing. But if you use your lights when the car's stationary, that's when it gets hit with the largest amount of draw. So you need to ensure that your wire is capable of handling that draw and your switch capable of handling that wattage. Okay, so I hope this is of some help to you. I thought it was important because I've read on a lot of forums that people are tearing their hair out with Mazdas. It's really a process of elimination. I thought it was worthwhile posting this so that you can make your connection and understand why you're having the problems. A lot of people are having the problems and saying, I can't connect it. Well, it's not that difficult, but it's not that simple either. So enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your light bars.